This is All in America. Bernie Sanders in Trump country. From McDowell County, West Virginia, here is Chris Hayes.
Good evening from the Mountain View High School in McDowell County, West Virginia, where we've come for a show we are calling Bernie Sanders in Trump country. All right, President Trump, of course, did get 75% of the vote in the general election here in McDowell County. And he made a lot of promises to the people here. First and foremost, the return of jobs in the coal industry, whose decline has decimated McDowell County. This is also a place where Obamacare has been a lifeline for many people. People who could lose access to vital coverage under the GOP health care plan. And tonight, we're going to talk about all of that with members of this community, as well as with Senator Bernie Sanders, who joins me now. Real unfriendly crowd for you, Senator. Why you and I were in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Very different place in a lot of respects, but a place that voted for Donald Trump by a very thin margin. This place voted for Trump by a very wide margin. Why'd you want to come down to McDowell County?
Well, I was here during the campaign. We had a town meeting about a mile away from here. And I got to tell you, Chris, you know, I held many, many town meetings throughout the campaign, but that one stays in my mind because of the courage and the determination and the honesty of the people who were there. This is a community that has a whole lot of problems. People didn't run away from those problems, but they are determined to solve those problems and to go forward. So I enjoyed that meeting, and I thought it's also important that we have national television starting to focus not just on McDowell County, but on rural America and what's happening coast to coast in small towns across this country.
We're here in McDowell. McDowell has a bunch of specific challenges, some of them having to do with the coal industry and other things that we're going to get to. But it's also not, in some ways, that different from the rest of West Virginia or the rest of Appalachia or even big parts of your state in Vermont.
Absolutely. In my state of Vermont, we are seeing, and this is really sad, and it is extremely upsetting, we are seeing young people leaving our small towns because they can't find decent jobs. And these are kids who wanted to stay in Vermont, and that's going on all over this country. So what we're seeing is an exodus of jobs in rural America. We're seeing a lot of educational challenges, kids who can't afford to go to college. We're seeing environmental problems. We're seeing health care problems. So the problem here may be a little bit more severe. But what we're going to talk about tonight, in fact, is taking place in many, many hundreds of small towns throughout this country.
You know, there's a lot of promises that got made to places like McDowell County and to rural America in the campaign, particularly. President Trump promised to bring coal jobs back. He recently, I want to play a little bit of sound of him saying that he made good on a promise when he had a bunch of coal miners into the Oval Office to sign a piece of legislation that would repeal a law that prevented coal companies from polluting streams. Take a listen.
This is HJ Resolution 38, and that will eliminate another terrible job-killing rule, saving many thousands of American jobs, especially in the mines, which I've been promising you. We're going to fight for you like I promised I would in the campaign, and you were very good to me, and I'm going to be even better to you. I promise you that.
That's the president signing a piece of legislation promising to bring jobs back to coal country places like here in McDowell County. We've got some residents of McDowell County up there. Philip, you just got hired as a coal miner, am I right?
Yep.
Coal took a beating, 2010, 2015. Tell me what did that look like here in McDowell? What happened to the coal industry?
It looked pretty bad because that's where most of the income for a lot of men that work in this county comes from, is coal mining. And if you're not mining coal, you're doing a secondary job that doesn't pay nowhere near as much. And you can't support your family. You can't take care of what you have to take care of. So I'm happy to be back to work underground in the mines.
Were you working in mines before?
Yeah, I've been underground for 10 years and then got laid off. Had to take a secondary job. It doesn't pay, doesn't have hospitalization or nothing. Now I have all that again. And I just hope that it lasts so I can take care of me and my family.
What was that like to go from being underground, working the mines, having a steady coal mining job, to being laid off and having to take a second job?
I didn't like it. I didn't prefer it at all because I love being a coal miner. That's what's in my blood, and that's what I do, and I'll do till I die. But it just doesn't feel right doing anything else. And a lot of coal miners say they love it. I do, but we do it for the money. We do it for the hospitalization. We do it for what it gives us. Not because it's a glamorous job or anything like that. It's for the money. That's why we do it.
Would you do something, if there were jobs here in McDowell County that paid what coal mining paid, gave the benefits coal mining paid, would people take those jobs?
Absolutely.
Are there any jobs? Are there any jobs in McDowell County that do that?
No.
So, Senator, coal, I think, is on a long-term decline.
Yes.
What do you tell the folks here for whom, like Philip, that is the one job that pays a decent wage and gives benefit?
Well, let me be honest and say two things. I think, and disagree with me if you think I'm wrong on this, but coal in this area has been in decline, I think, since the 70s and in the 80s. It's not anything that's new.
Yeah.
And I think, and second of all, and I know not everybody, will be happy with me saying this, but I happen to believe, unlike the president, that climate change is real and it is a threat to our... But having said that, I don't hold this gentleman and the coal miners responsible for climate change. All right? In fact, these guys are heroes. I remember I grew up in a rent-controlled apartment house in Brooklyn, New York, and I will never forget the piles of coal. I don't know if it came from here or wherever it came. You kept my house warm. Thank you. All right? So you are not my enemy. But what we have to do is, and in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, what we have to do is to say the choice is not transforming our energy system to protect the planet and throwing people out on the street. The choice is reinvesting in communities that have been devastated by changes in energy and make sure folks have decent paying jobs. And we can do that. We are not a poor country.
Let me just go back to you for a second, Philip. The senator talked about climate change. People were applauding. I noticed you didn't applaud. What do you think it's real?
Climate change? Well, I mean, the world's been changing for billions of years. I mean, I don't think, personally, because I'm not a scientist or a physicist, I don't really know the technical stuff, but I don't think that it's coal. It's everything. It's cars. It's people.
That's true.
It's people who smoke. There's, 20 million, 100 million people who smoke cigarettes. But then again, when coal produces carbon dioxide, trees eat carbon dioxide and give us oxygen. And coal is nowhere near more disastrous than nuclear power. You take all the coal that's been mined since its inception till now. You take all the pollution since then till now. It will never add up to the pollution that one nuclear meltdown makes.
A bunch of people applauded when the senator said that coal's been on decline since the 70s and 80s. Is that generally the feeling?
Yes. It's true.
Yeah. So it got particularly bad in 2010, 2015, but that was part of a long decline, right?
Yes.
So when someone says, like the President of the United States, literally, I will reopen the coal mines. The President said that line. I'm going to bring coal jobs back. Delegate, do you believe that's true? Is that possible?
You have to look at the whole situation. The reason we had the decline in the coal industry was mechanization. It doesn't take nearly as many men to run a machine that mines the coal for you as it did the guys who were actually picking the coal with a shovel and a pick. I would be, I think in my own mind, remiss if I said that he can do that. I don't think he can. Now, he can bring...
Let me just stop you there, because I want to say, does the room agree with that? So the President of the United States is not going to wave some magic wand, and he's not going to pass some piece of legislation that's going to reopen the coal mines here in McDowell County. That's not happening. Continue.
We also have to look at the people that once lived here. There were 100,000 people in this county at one time. Most of them were immigrants. Cities like Gary, West Virginia. U.S. Steel literally carved a town out of the mountainside. Come here. We've got your house waiting on you. We've got the job waiting on you. And that's why they came. Now that's not here. We don't have any housing here. We new people that want to come here and work, there's no place for them to live.
Sabrina, what happens to a place when jobs go away the way they've gone away in McDowell? What have you seen in your lifetime? If you had to tell someone the story of the trajectory of this place that you call home, what would you tell them?
I never saw the jobs. I never saw what could be. I still don't know what all is out there. I'm trying to figure it out. But you're born in a generational poverty where you don't know people who can get houses or can get cars, or if you do, it's like 10% of people. I mean, it's not that many. So you think you're really rich if you can get a house and a car, and compared to some people you are. But for all the coal that has came out of our mountains, and the whole country and half of the world got electricity because of my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my uncles, my cousins. We really got breadcrumbs out of all of it. So I was born to be lucky to get breadcrumbs.
Do you agree with that, Senator?
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, you know, these guys are heroes. How many of them, and by the way, while we're talking about the issue, you may know, Phil, that right now there are tens of thousands of coal miners who were promised health care when they retired, whose families were promised pensions, and you got a Congress, including Senator McConnell from the coal state of Kentucky, which is holding up legislation to make sure these families have the health care and the pensions that they were promised. So, if you think about all of the miners who suffered and died from black lung disease and all the other injuries, I would say that as a nation, we owe these folks a great deal.
Amen.
Which is why we have to keep the promises that were made to them by the companies that went bankrupt and make sure those families get the pensions and the health care that they desperately need.
So, since you're working in the mines right now, and you know, coal is a boom-bust business, right? Folks agree with that, right? Times get good, people get flush, people get jobs, everyone goes under, right? Comes back. There's always that sense maybe it's going to come back. Do you think that the president can get the mines opening again? Can you imagine a future in McDowell where coal really comes back in a big way the way it was in 1980 or 1990?
Me personally, I hope it does. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for coal mining, but I know that it would be a great future because, like he said, our infrastructure is crumbling and falling apart, and America makes the best steel. We have the best coal, and we've got the best bunch of men that work in the coal mines in this world. So I believe that we could really rebuild America, not with just McDowell County, of course, but with any county or any state that has coal. I think it should go on until there's no more of it left. I'm all about mining coal. I mean, and I know a lot of men in here, if they work in the coal mines or have, I'm sure they'll agree with me on that. I think we need hospitalization. Every coal miner does, to take care of what happens to you underground, because it's a harsh environment. Very harsh.
Phil, let me jump in and ask you a question, because I certainly agree with you that every worker, whether you're a coal miner or somebody else, should be entitled. Let me pose this question to Phil and to other people. We are the only major country on earth, the only one that doesn't guarantee health care to all people as a right. What do you think? Do you think we should join other countries and guarantee health care as a right of all?
Yeah, I think every American citizen should have health care. Some way or some shape.
That's actually... I'm glad the senator brought that up, because there's a big fight that's going to happen. It's already happening. You guys are nodding your head. There's a big fight about exactly that, and I want to talk about what that fight looks like and what it's going to do to McDowell County right after we take this quick break. Dr. Lori Tucker, I want to start with you because you're a healthcare provider. Tell me what you do, what kind of services you offer, and what healthcare on the ground looks like here in McDowell.
Well, I'm an OBGYN physician in Princeton, West Virginia. It's about an hour away. To give you an idea, that's 36 miles from here, and it takes over an hour in good weather if you don't get behind a coal truck. Yeah. So in southern West Virginia, so many patients were able to finally get health care with the Affordable Care Act. There was a lot of resistance to that, because everybody thought anything tagged to President Obama was not necessarily a good thing, but it ended up being tremendous for us.
Do you have patients that went through that trajectory of beginning to say, I don't like Obamacare, I don't like this president, to I'm on Medicaid now and I'm actually happy this thing is here?
I don't know that they know to appreciate it as much as they should. I can tell you from the time that, that transition 8 years ago started till now, I probably had maybe a quarter of my patients were Medicaid. And now I would say probably 75% of my patients are Medicaid. So that can tell you right now just the tremendous influence it's had, particularly for maternity care.
How many people in the room are either on Medicaid or someone they know or love is on Medicaid? Raise your hand.
Someone we know or love, absolutely.
Senator, I'd like to hear what you think about what the legislation that's proposed right now would do to the folks in McDowell County, given just how many people are enrolled on Medicaid.
Well, let me be honest and start off and say my view is different than most in Congress. I happen to believe that health care is a right, and we should move toward a Medicare for all. It is no small thing that as a result of Obamacare, 20 million more Americans got health care. Mm-hmm. And many of them never in their lives had health care and go to a doctor when they needed to go, or go to a hospital without worried about going bankrupt. So that's a big deal. Now, in West Virginia, ironically, because Trump won this state, by a landslide, you are looking, if the Affordable Care Act, if Obamacare is repealed, we are looking at hundreds of thousands of people who got Medicaid extension losing that. And how many of those folks will die? How many of those folks will lose the opioid treatment that they now have? It is a lot. I don't know exactly, but it is a whole lot. But what really bothers me is that when you look at the Republican bill, it should not be seen as a health care bill, because throwing millions of people off of health care is not health care legislation. What it should be seen as is a huge tax break for the wealthiest people in this country. 200. At a time when we have a massive level of income and wealth inequality, where the rich are getting much richer while the middle class shrinks, this legislation would provide over a 10-year period $275 billion in tax breaks to the top 2%. So when people tell you, oh, we don't have enough money to invest in McDowell County or rebuild our infrastructure nationally, but we do have $275 billion to give to the top 2% who are already doing phenomenally well, when they tell you they don't have the money, don't believe them. Mm-hmm.
Marianne, I want to talk to you because you had a very personal experience with the Affordable Care Act and your son. Tell me about that.
Yes, with our son, he had a liver transplant when he was 20, and during that 6-week period, we raked up almost $800,000 in bills. And our insurance, we didn't realize at that time, because it was a very fine print, that we had $1 million lifetime maximum. So the way that the ACA has helped us is that he's been allowed to stay on our insurance. He had he's acquired a second disease now where he's totally paralyzed. He's on a feeding tube. He's on a vent at night. He can't speak. And just our being able to have him we have him at home. And our insurance, you know, he has Medicaid, but not all doctors are taking the Medicaid.
Let me ask you this. The key point here is the lifetime cap, right? So
right,
the policy basically says, and folks are familiar with this, right? You spend $1 million and then that's it.
And that's
for your life, it's done. Affordable Care Act got rid of that. If that lifetime cap existed, if the Affordable Care Act hadn't been passed, you would have just been out of luck.
Yeah, we would have been out of luck.
Judy, you've got a story about the Affordable Care Act as well, and a specific health condition called black lung that affects a lot of folks here, and I want to talk about that right after we take this quick break. Judy, you intimately know black lung, and that's a specific ailment that affects a lot of folks here. What is at stake in terms of the Affordable Care Act and its repeal for you and the folks that you know and love?
Okay, with the black lung, before the Affordable Care Act, you know, President Nixon signed that the coal miners would be compensated for the health because their life is going to be shortened by the black lung, and it does come from the occupation. President Reagan then made it so hard for the miner to prove he had black lung. It just could not even be done hardly. So then our Senator Byrd was wheeled out on the Senate floor in a wheelchair when they were passing the Affordable Care Act, and he got it that if a miner had worked 15 years in the mines, the burden of proof would go to the company to prove he didn't have the black lung, instead of the miner having to prove it. Also, when the miner would die, the spouse had to reprove it. Senator Byrd got that part removed. Huh. But this is all going to die with the Affordable Care Act.
I just want to be clear. If they pass this bill right now, if they repeal the Affordable Care Act, the expanded eligibility for folks with black lung, for all the folks in this county and the neighboring counties and all throughout West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Kentucky and Tennessee that mine coal for years, it will go back to being much, much harder for those folks to access benefits from the government. Is that right?
Yes, and also we have these rural health clinics that treat these miners with this black lung disease. And, you know, it's very needed. That is mostly funded by the Affordable Care Act. That will go.
Senator, I got to note an irony about this bill that's in Washington that Judy brings up. If you look at this bill that's being proposed in Congress right now, whether you support it or oppose it, one thing you notice is the people that take it on the chin the most are rural folks. That's just a fact about the way the bill's structured. You could think the bill's great or you could think it's terrible. But if you look at the subsidies, if you look at the black lung provisions, I mean...
Rural hospitals will be devastated.
Rural hospitals, I mean, this bill, whether you think it's great or not, whether you think the Affordable Care Act is to go and you want, quote, more choice, it does seem inevitable that rural hospitals, rural health care delivery, and rural folks are going to take it on the chin the most of this bill.
So the irony is, I think you're suggesting, is that many of the folks who voted for Trump are going to be hurt the most. One of the reasons, again, we can agree with the Affordable Care Act, you don't like the Affordable Care Act, whatever. Nobody denies that when a piece of legislation impacts tens of millions of people and many, many hundreds of billions of dollars, it is significant. To the best of my knowledge, as of today, what the Republicans want to do, because they don't want discussion like this about what's in the bill, what they want to do is pass it in a very brief period of time in the House, bring it to the Senate without any hearings at all. Unprecedented for a major piece of legislation like that. So there is a reason why the American Medical Association opposes it, why the American Hospital Association opposes it, why AARP and many groups, the AFL-CIO, many other organizations oppose it. Because it does the things that Judy talked about. It's going to result in people dying because if you don't have health insurance and you get sick, what do? You don't go to the doctor. And by the time you get to the doctor, it could be too late. They don't want to discuss it because this really, again, is not a health care bill. It is a bill, and morally, we should be thinking about it. What does it mean that we throw millions of people off of health care to give huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country? That is not a moral decision. It's not what this country should be about. It's easy to say, to rip apart the Affordable Care Act. You know what? It is not a perfect piece of legislation. Okay, we all agree with that. Deductions have gone up too high. Premiums have gone up. It is not a perfect piece of legislation. The goal should be to improve it, not simply throw it out.
Now, there's a specific healthcare issue in this county and throughout West Virginia that you folks are dealing with that is being dealt with across the country, including in New York City, which is opioids.
Yes.
And that presents unique challenges, and I want to talk a little bit if you guys want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
So let's take one break, and and that is not something, I should be very clear, that is unique to McDowell County in any way, shape, or form. In fact, Staten Island, New York City, where I live, has seen unbelievable increase in opioid deaths. Mr. Chafin, stand up for me for a second. You served in the state senate for 32 years.
I did.
You're part of a lawsuit right now against the drug companies. We covered this on my show last week about drug wholesalers. What's the lawsuit getting at?
The lawsuit is, we're ground zero, Chris, as you know, for opioid drugs in the nation. McDowell County, the city of Welch, a little city west of here named Kermit, they dumped over 4,194,000 pills in that little town with 400 people.
Say that again. Say that again.
A little town of Kermit, most people know west of here.
It's got 400
in 2015, it has 400 people. 3 companies dumped 4,194,000 opioid pills in it in 1 year. The pharmacy there was making $500,000 a month selling these pills. People had 10,000 pills in their pocket, and they were selling to anybody that wants to buy it. That is Amerisource Bergen, McKesson Corporation out of San Francisco, and Cardinal Health out of Ohio. So this suit is bringing, we brought the first political subdivision suit in McDowell County that's ever been brought. Our legal team did. We also just recently filed a suit for the city of Welch. And it's for the opioid epidemic.
And you're saying that you irresponsibly pump these pills into this
Absolutely.
county.
They knew it was intentional, it was willful, it was wanton. If you are making a deadly, highly addictive, poisonous pill, and if you take it in any quantities at all, and you send 4,194,000 to a town with 400 people, what do you think these companies are thinking? It's all about money. Making money, Chris, is fine. As the Bible says, it's the love of money that's the evil that drives these people, and it's killing them.
Thank you. Doctor, can you tell me a little bit about what this looks like on the ground here?
Okay, let me just say, I never wanted to have to treat addiction in my life. As an obstetrician, though, I have to now, because we have so many pregnant women who are addicted to pills. Now, I want to go back to what you were saying real quick, too. One of the things you have to remember is that there's a supply and demand in southern West Virginia. You can send as many pills in as you want, but if you don't have a prescription to take to the pharmacy from a physician, you're not going to get it filled. So where is the start of the problem? And it's a lot with my profession.
You think doctors?
I think so.
Dina, you grew up here, right? Can you talk a little bit about what it's meant to watch this happen around you here in McDowell?
A lot of the people that are my age are not here. They're in cemeteries. They're buried. They've left children. They've left moms. They've left dads. It's sad because, like the gentleman said, you know, there's nothing to do here but it seems like get high. And it's sad because our generation, that's all we have to look forward to around here. And, you know, I have 2 children of my own and the 3rd one on the way. And if there can be anything to be done about this, I want it to be done, you know, because they don't have a voice, and I do. So, and I agree with Dr. Tucker. A lot of the doctors here do over-prescribe. I myself am on 13 different medications alone at 29 years old.
Right now?
Right now. But I've had to stop due to pregnancy, but alone, like I said, me, 13 different medications at 29.
Including pain medication?
Well, I was for a broke finger, yeah.
You're shaking your head, Delegate Evans. I mean, this is, obviously this is bigger than McDowell, but it is particularly bad right here. Mm-hmm. What can you do?
I'm concerned, you know, that we have so many people here. As a teacher in this school for 35 years, it bothered me that so many of these kids said the first thing they wanted to do was get out of here, you know, because there was nothing for them to do, as she said, except for the drugs. We put a federal prison in here. And one of the deals with the federal prison was that so many people in McDowell County would get a job. The problem was we couldn't get people to work because they couldn't pass the drug test. Right. So now they bring them in on buses here. Mm-hmm. Yep. They literally
So even when you bring jobs, right, which everyone's saying this place needs jobs, mm-hmm. people that live here can't get those jobs because they can't clear that drug test.
That's correct.
That's right.
And it concerns me that in the legislature, all we're doing is passing bills that will put people in jail longer for doing the drugs. You know, we're not doing anything on the front end. We're not doing any education. We're not doing any treatment. We need a treatment facility here worse than anywhere in America.
Let me ask you a follow-up question. You're a Democrat. You voted for Donald Trump, I take it, right?
I did vote for Donald Trump.
All right. When he talked a lot about this on the campaign trail, about opioids. He says two things. He says they're coming in over the border from Mexico, which, if you listen to what's happening at the pharmacy in Kermit, sounds like that's not actually where the problem's originated.
Big pharma.
And then the big question to you is, do you trust that the president's going to do any of those things that you're talking about, not taking a law and order get tough approach, but treatment, investment, things like that? Do you trust that's going to happen?
I do not. I said it. We are not doing anything on the front end. Now, if we've got the numbers of pills that Senator Chafin says are coming in just to our little town, let's magnify that by the entire state of West Virginia. Now let's look at all 50 states in America. The amount of pills that's being manufactured and put on the streets for simple profit is just insane.
Senator, what can you and your colleagues do? Because you and Trump both talked about this on the campaign trail, and I should say Hillary Clinton did as well. And one of the things that struck me during the campaign was no one in Washington was talking about opioids until candidates had to start going to town halls. And what happened in the campaign was they started showing up in New Hampshire, and every town hall, all anyone wanted to talk about was opioids. How many people have lost someone in this room?
Jesus. Whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Now the campaign's over, and you know what I hear in Washington, Senator? No one talking about it anymore. I heard about it in the campaign. I heard about it in every town hall. I heard the President of the United States talking about it, and now we got a health bill in front of us in Washington that, frankly, I don't think does any of the things the delegate's talking about.
Well, it does the reverse.
It does.
If you end Medicaid extension and cut back on Medicaid, there will be less treatment available for folks who are dealing with addiction. And Chris, I mean, the point to be made, I know how severe the problem is here. A couple of years ago, the governor of the state of Vermont gave his State of the State address. And you know what he talked about? Not economics, not health care. He talked about the opioid addiction problem in the state of Vermont. And in New Hampshire, it's severe. It is a severe problem all over the country. So I think there are a couple of things we ought to do. I mean, the first thing, and Dina raised this issue, is if people have nothing to look forward to in their lives, I suppose getting high is an alternative, yes?
Truth.
All right, it's a tragic alternative. All right, so we got to deal with that reality. Second of all, putting people behind bars for longer periods of time is not, I think, going to solve the problem.
No, it's not.
We need treatment centers.
Yes.
And you know, in Vermont, we've been fairly aggressive about that, but we certainly, there are no treatment centers right here?
No, there are not.
We're ground zero of the opioid epidemic, and there are no treatment centers here.
There was one that was going to be built here a year or so ago, and there was property available, local entrepreneur working on that. Goes to Charleston, suddenly he's told, money's not here now. Just simply not available, just evaporated.
You know, and it's going to get worse because if the Republican plan goes through, mental health, maternity care, addiction treatment, it's going to go by the wayside. And the onus of responsibility is going to be on us folks to take care of our own people. And we can't just keep ignoring it. We're talking about it, but how are we going to get these people treated if we don't have the funds available for it? And if Medicaid gets cut federally and West Virginia has to fund more of that, guess what state's broke? Ours. We don't have the funding to take care of that, so people are going to lose Medicaid people.
I want to talk about how we make McDowell County great again when we come back from this break. You're a politician. You're in the middle right now. There's a budget fight happening in the Capitol. And you're a Democrat. You voted for Donald Trump.
That's correct.
What is your evaluation? We're 50 days into this. What is your evaluation of where this country is headed right now with this president and what it means for the folks here?
I think there's a lot of turmoil across the United States of America right now. We're seeing, so many young people protesting different things. We're seeing adults protesting different things. I think the president has got to back up some of the promises that he made, and especially to West Virginia.
What about Medicaid specifically? What about this health care bill?
We cannot do without Medicaid. The Affordable Care Act also in West Virginia, to lose that will devastate West Virginia. We will have people making the decision whether or not they're going to eat or they're going to have health care. And we have doctors that know this. We have people that are influential enough to say out in public that we need to not do away with the Affordable Care Act, but we need to fix it.
Phil, let me ask you the same question. You're back in the mine, so I think you're probably feeling good personally about where things are headed. How much have you been paying attention to what's going on in Washington, this president? How much do you feel encouraged by the direction things are going?
I've paid quite a bit of attention to it all, really. There's a lot of protesting, like Mr. Evans said. And I don't really know a lot about politics, and I don't know what Donald Trump's going to do for the rest of the country. But as far as West Virginia, that's what he promised us. That's what matters to me. Because I'm a West Virginian. I'm proud to be a West Virginian. And I voted for him only solely because he said he was going to help us. He was going to put the coal miners back to work, and we're going to have health care and this and that. We need health care. Everybody in this room needs free health care.
Now, are you expecting, when you think about him, he made those promises to you. You're looking for him to deliver on those promises,
absolutely,
on health care.
Absolutely. On health care, yes, definitely. Because, some people are elderly. They have no way to work. They have no way, then if they can't work, like Mr. Evans said, they can't eat. They got to buy some kind of pill that costs $200 or $300 a piece. Like my mom, she had cancer. Some of the pills she had to buy, thank God my dad was in the UMWA, it took care of all of her bills. Some of those pills were $200 and $300 a piece. Who can afford that?
Nobody.
Nobody can. Not in West Virginia.
Not anywhere. Terry, let me talk to you for a second. You worked in the mines yourself, huh?
Yes, I'm a retired UNWA miner, and I never dreamed that I'd get to thank you personally myself for the bill that you have co-sponsored and how the Senate Bill 175, the Miners Protection Act, which I'm one of those miners that will lose. I'm one of those miners that will lose his health care at the end of April if they don't pass that law. I come from local 1440 in Matewan. It's a little old town on down the river where McDowell's water goes to when it leaves McDowell County. And we're one of the largest locals in the UMWA. We have over 800 members, all inactive. They're all retired. So we look at things different, and we look at our health care and what we've already worked out. We're not going to mine any more coal. Our coal mining days are over, and we looked at to have the funds that we worked for that were promised to us taken care of. That's all we asked. And I think it's kind of ironic that a senator from the Northeast
yes.
takes care of my benefits better than someone like Mitch McConnell.
Senator, what would it mean let's think for a second about what it would mean if money were no object, if you could wave a magic wand for a future for places like rural Vermont, rural Kentucky, and this McDowell County. If you could imagine a future, right? And that future is not the future of all the coal mines open back up. What does that look like? What can people even think?
I will tell you what I think it looks like. And people will say, well, this is pie in the sky. He's being utopian. He's not being realistic. But what I want, the point that I want to make is, you know, I've been in Washington a while, and I see hundreds of billions of dollars going in tax breaks to people who don't need it. I see an enormous amount of waste and inefficiency. So what I'm going to tell you is not utopian. It's not crazy. It is real. For a start, health care must be a right of all people, workers and retirees. Number two, $1 trillion investment in infrastructure will improve the quality of life of McDowell County and Vermont and create 15 million jobs. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And again, when I talk about infrastructure for rural America, that includes good quality broadband.
Yes.
So that industry can come to your community.
Yes.
And when we talk about the future, education is obviously the key. The world is changing. Again, this is not radicalism. I want every kid in Burlington, Vermont, and in McDowell County, West Virginia, to know that if he or she studies hard and does well in school, that those kids will be able to go to a public college or university tuition free. And that transforms education, because kids in the 6th grade will say, I will study, because I will have an opportunity to get a higher education regardless of the income of my family. So I think those are some of the goals that we should be striving for. And let me just conclude by saying this. I want everybody to be aware. Check it out. Don't believe me. There are folks who not only do not want to go in that direction, they want to go in the very opposite direction. They want to cut Social Security. They want to cut veterans' benefits. So our job is to stand up and say that we are one country, whether it's McDowell County or Burlington, Vermont. We are the wealthiest nation. We don't need to give tax breaks to billionaires. We need to invest in working people. That's what we need to do.
I just want to say personally, I want to thank all you folks from McDowell County for having us. It's been a real pleasure to be here, and I'm happy that we got some time to talk about what's going on here, because it relates to things going on all over this country. So thank you very much for having us.